Tibay. In Damem. Let me repeat. Tibay. In Damem. You probably didn't understand what I just said now, did you? Well, that is because I spoke in Mizo, a language most of you are unfamiliar with, which is also my mother tongue. Had I spoken in English or Hindi, there's a very good chance that you would have understood what I was saying. I said, "Hello, how are you?" Now, why is it that we give more importance to some languages and not to all? Due to globalization, which happened over 5,000 years ago when the Silk Routes were first established, languages, traditions, and cultures spread all over the world. This led people to move out of their states or countries to find jobs, which meant that they had to learn the languages there. As people became more multilingual, they started losing proficiency in their own mother tongues. This is not just for those who move out of their hometowns. It also applies to those who stay at their origins. Due to westernization and pop culture, newer generations are more familiar with things such as BTS, Taylor Swift, or Beyoncé, whereas they know only bits and parts of their own culture. It's not everyone's choice, of course, to lose touch with one's mother tongue, but nowadays, the global economy, in fact, the entire world, runs on languages such as English and Chinese. Most parents would rather teach their children English as compared to teaching their children their own native or tribal language, as they may see it as more economically beneficial. But who can blame them? It's a requirement nowadays. A classmate of mine, for example, belongs to a small tribal community in Gujarat. She actually told me that she doesn't speak her tribal language, Thorai, at all. Whenever she goes to her father's side of the family, she can't comprehend them. She does, however, speak English, Hindi, and Gujarati fluently. This is because these are the languages needed to secure our livelihoods nowadays. Imagine I'm a doctor in India who doesn't speak Hindi. I wouldn't be able to make connections with my patients, and those patients who don't speak English won't be able to understand my counsel at all. So while it may not be an official requirement, it has turned out to be an unspoken necessity, as being understood is one of the most important parts of any communication. When I came from Mizoram to Udaipur a little over a year ago, I could barely speak in Hindi. I was extremely scared and self-conscious about not knowing the local language. The roads, store signs, every single thing seemed to be in Hindi, and I was very, very nervous. With the help of good teachers and more than willing to teach classmates, however, I got on pretty quickly. And I'm even giving my Hindi boards in a few months. However, there were times when I felt a bit alienated from my classmates. There were jokes in class I couldn't understand. Events and assemblies I felt I missed out on because they were conducted in Hindi and I couldn't comprehend them. Even when I needed to interact with the support staff, I could not do so without the help of a classmate. It made me feel largely left out. Not just for economic benefits. We learn these languages so that people don't discriminate or look down on us. In a way, we learn them so that we can belong. Now, why am I talking about this? According to the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, endangered languages are those languages which people have stopped speaking, are being spoken a lot less, and those that have stopped being taught to newer generations. There are even types from vulnerable, definitely endangered, severely endangered, critically endangered, and extinct. At the rate we are going, most of the world's languages are in danger of being lost forever. Even though Google Translate is a phenomenal creation, most languages are not on Google Translate. Because as compared to the more widely spoken languages such as English, only a very small community of people speak these endangered languages. Even those who speak it don't do it as proficiently as their elders once did. Since they don't use it regularly, they are unable to teach it to their progeny, as oftentimes they are unaware of the pronunciations or usages. The digital divide plays a huge role in this as well. Did you know that only about 200 to 300 languages are actually well established online? Those are the very same languages that all applications run on. We as human beings are extremely adaptable creatures, but this may not always be a very good thing. To connect and interact with people around the world, we've adapted ourselves to learning the most common means of communication out there, English. Due to this practice, our mother tongue has taken a back seat, as it is much easier to learn a common medium rather than it is to learn the regional language of some other country. As English-speaking folk grow, the rest of the world gets left behind. Already, 1/3 of the world's languages have less than 1,000 speakers. Now, this is an image taken from the Living Tongues Institute for Endangered Languages. It's a world map which shows the language hotspots where languages are most likely to be extinct. Let me give you an example. In Africa, there is this language called Tillamook. Now, let's all imagine that the very last speaker of Tillamook was in a room full of English speakers, and he tried to convey to them something which he discovered or something which he needed help with. Now, those English speakers would not be able to understand him at all, nor would they be able to help him. Even if you brought people who spoke different languages from all over the world into that room, they wouldn't be able to understand him at all. It could have been something they may have benefited from, but it would be lost. Now, did you know that Tillamook is actually extinct? No one speaks it, nor does anyone understand it anymore. All its artifacts, stories are incomprehensible to us. It doesn't matter if we find ways to translate it or if we find ways to decipher it, though that real meaning will never come out, because languages do have unique terms to them, such as in Mizo. The term Klomwaitna is usually used to refer to a person with qualities such as honesty, humility, humbleness, and much more. It's not just a word, it is a feeling which is described in one. Tillamook is just one of the many languages which has been lost. According to National Geographic, a language gets lost every fortnight. UNESCO actually estimates that by the end of this century, 3,000 languages would have been lost at a rate of 1 every 14 days, a fortnight. Let me all ask you something. When does something become real? When we believe it to be, right? We all read these history books and believe them to be true because someone wrote it down and the world unanimously agreed and said that, yes, it happened. Now, when do we believe something to be real? When we can understand it, when our brains can connect and comprehend it. A point of time is going to come when we won't understand these languages, which means that we won't remember the community which spoke them either. All the artifacts, achievements of that community will be lost to us because we can't understand it. It doesn't matter if we glorify their artifacts in museums, if we don't know the real meaning behind it. Imagine we didn't know what all those artifacts meant. Maybe we never would have found out why the Indus Valley civilization built their houses like that, why people wore certain colors, or why people did certain things. It would all just be lost to us. We as human beings only ever remember what we understand, what our brains can actually connect. A point in time will come when these communities will be forgotten just because we don't understand their language. Being forgotten just like that, to me, is one of the most heartbreaking things that can happen to a person. But when it happens to a whole community, the loss that follows has larger repercussions. It is our utmost responsibility to collaborate with one another, to make translations in these languages, re-explore, relearn about our own languages. We have to go back to our own origins. Such as in the Mizo community, we've actually successfully made a sort of website which will translate Mizo to English and vice versa. It's a huge accomplishment. It's a very big deal, and we have to understand its importance. We have to make sure that our identity is not just on some other online list of lost languages. We have to make sure that we don't become some exotic name amongst millions of others. Now, just as I started learning Hindi, we can all start learning other languages as well. A senior of mine, a classmate of my sister's actually, can speak pretty comprehensible Mizo. Now, it's kind of funny, but we started off by teaching her a few dialogues and sayings. She got on, and she can somewhat make her own sentences now. Even some of my classmates can speak a few dialogues in Mizo. In fact, this is how I started learning Hindi. My roommate at the time had taught me this one Hindi dialogue from a very old Bollywood movie. It went, "Ek chutki sindoor ki कीमत, tum kya jano Ramesh Babu." We have to remember that languages are not just to show that we're extremely proficient in it or that we're always grammatically correct. We learn these languages, we use these languages so that we can communicate with one another. Because what is communication? When two people interact with each other, understand each other, successfully get their opinions through without any miscommunication, without any misunderstanding, well, that is communication. This is the very same concept which is followed for sign languages. I'm not asking for anyone to spend all of their time mastering tongues. I'm just asking for everyone to have the ability to comfortably speak in your own language, so that we're not forgotten, so that we can leave our marks on history, and that we're not withered away by the turning wheels of time. Languages are our way of communicating and interacting with one another. As long as we keep this in mind moving forward, I'm sure that we'll eventually end up on the right path. That is, of course, if we don't forget the value or importance of our tongues. I'd like to note the funniest thing about this whole thing It's very ironic, in fact. I had to give the speech in English because, again, had I spoken in any other regional language, you wouldn't have understood. Thank you.